We created Free because someone had to stand for the addicts and loved ones of addicts who were suffering in silence, for the spiritual refugees who didn't have a place of belonging. A traditional church model doesn't create space for the conversations we know have to be had. Free is standing with those who are barely hanging on, who are longing for something new. Free is bridging the gap between spirituality and recovery. In this place, God meets us exactly where we are. This is what we stand for.
How's everyone doing? A nice, beautiful, less Canada smoke day than it was this week, huh? Everyone survived the hazardous material. Yeah, we're here. I think I might have emphysema, but I wasn't going back to one of those 2020 masking mandates, so I just raw dogged life. But welcome everyone to Free. Free Recovery Community is a community of addicts. I kept going with that conversation. I'd probably get canceled. Free Recovery Community is community of addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. I'm looking around the room tonight. It looks like we're all family, right? We got no new visitors. Happy to see everyone here. So I don't need to explain things like, our normal flow of things or anything like that. Maybe for those of you joining us online. We'll start off in just a second with some celebrations, and then we'll go into a message that's recovery related, followed by a song for contemplation. Then we'll have a special guest storyteller tonight. Raya is joining us, so we'll have Raya. And then we'll close with heartaches, and then we'll pray and go enjoy our beautiful Saturday night. Does that sound good? Awesome.
Hello, everybody. I'm Matt. Good to see everybody. It's been a while. As you know, there's one thing we don't do at Free, and that's shame. So we like to say it all together every week. So if you wouldn't mind joining me on the count of three. 1, 2, 3.
We don't do shame.
Thank you.
Okay, so a few quick announcements before we get rolling. First of all, if you're new here or maybe you're coming back and you'd like to get a little bit more connected with whatever's going on here, we have Connect cards around the corner. Matt will be around there after the gathering. If you fill one of those out, we'll get you a little piece of merchandise to thank you for filling it out. So if you put your phone number on there, fair warning, I'll probably text you and ask you to coffee. For the record, it is not a date. I am in a happy relationship. That's just a chance to connect a little further.
And then also, I'm a volunteer. There's a lot of volunteers in this room, but if you haven't volunteered, please scan the QR code. We appreciate the help with AV, setup, teardown, and it's a good way for us all kind of connect. There's a lot of fellowship between us, so
Yep.
if you're interested.
And you will have noticed that there is a donation box in the back. That donation box they're at a few different places around Chicago. Just this week, we had someone who was new at a sober living house, and he didn't have any hygiene products. So those donation boxes of, I say name brand hygiene products because we've all had not name brand hygiene products, right? Anyone had a not name brand hygiene product? How did your skin feel? Not like you had dignity, right? So we like to give people stuff that'll actually not make their skin itch. So if you feel so inclined, just come and drop off some hygiene products in there, and we'll make sure. We'll tell you one thing about the hygiene products: the demand is greater than the supply. So always feel free to bring those around. And now we've come to the time of our celebrations. So our celebrations are that chance for us to share with the community those things that are going well, those things that you're excited to share with each other. Just raise your hand and Matt will bring over the microphone.
Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm an addict.
Hi, Eric.
I actually have two celebrations. One is I found a rabbi, and we are moving along in the wedding. I'm just really excited about that. Woo! Another one, thank you. Another one is I shared a heartache a while back, a couple weeks ago, I believe, about a month ago maybe. A friend of mine from high school, she was stating that she was being unfortunately trafficked. I don't know what the truth was. It was just really scary. She wasn't making any sense. And she sent me a video recently of her really battered and bruised up, and she finally went to the police. I just know she just got out of the psych ward and she's going into an inpatient mental health facility, so she's safe, and that's all I care about.
Absolutely. That's a good one.
Hi, I'm Tyler. Grateful to be here.
Tyler.
I've been applying for grad schools, and I have my first meeting with a counselor on Monday.
Woo!
Hey, I'm Billy, and let's see, yesterday I had 4 months.
Woo!
Thank you. And I also have 2 job interviews on Monday, and I have a job, but these are like more along the lines of what I want to do. I actually want to work in the recovery world. So I'm excited about that. And then lastly, I didn't talk about this last week, but I'm training for a marathon with my daughter. And so every week we do our long runs together. So we ran, 9 miles on Tuesday. And I used to run a lot of marathons. I haven't done one in like 6 years, so I'm like, it's kicking my ass, but it's been great and a great time with my daughter. So I'm really excited for it.
Absolutely. Woo.
It's very motivating to you.
Joe, addict. Just a couple quick things. I just finished writing this really big grant. It took a lot of my time, and I met with a grant officer to develop strategy, and I hope it looks very competitive. But this Monday, I'm going skydiving for the first time.
Woo!
And I guess
It's going to be my heartache next week, actually. that time that my people-pleasing character defect made me say yes to Andy, and now I'm pooping my pants. Yeah. Awesome. Well.
I want to celebrate 2 things. A wonderful trip in Florida. I had a really wonderful week to relax and get away for a while. It's been a lot less stress 6 months, and it's finally to be stress-free. And the other one is I am celebrating my 6 months.
Woo! And look, so we're trying to get free coins that are like just for free, but I haven't gotten there yet. So you get a 6-month coin and a cute little package. So we'll be hearing from her more later tonight, so I don't gotta hype them too much. Awesome. Any other celebrations before we close it out? Okay. Well, this week has reminded me a lot of how special each of our sobriety is, no matter if it's 24 hours or 24 years. So let's celebrate everyone that's here tonight with a clear head and putting their recovery first on a Saturday night. So I think sometimes it's like really easy to take it for granted, right? Even if it's, no matter what it is, even if it's getting back on the metaphorical horse, or whether it's just making it through that time where the veil is thin. I think each and every one of us being here. So if you were here with us last week, we've kind of started a series on rest and Sabbath and what it looks like to spiritually recharge. And honestly, my journey to being able to set aside time to focus on my spirit and not my output has most certainly not been a linear one. So it kind of started during the pandemic for me. And for the first 3 years of my sobriety, I'd pretty much ran my sobriety kind of like I'd ran on the streets. Anyone done that with their sobriety? Just where I was always running and I was always trying to get ahead, and I had all these big hopes and dreams, and like maybe it was just because for the first time in my life I actually had the ability to hope again, and I wanted to take full advantage of all of that. It was all about how I could get the next job or the next promotion at that job, how I could make sure to attend social engagements because people actually wanted me around again, or maybe it was every service commitment that came my way. I hopped on, and if a little bit was good, then more was always better, right? Isn't that kind of an addict's behavior? Like if one cocktail's good, isn't 12 times better? Yeah. But during the pandemic, without all the noise and all the things to do, I just went to work, and then I'd go home. That was it. And suddenly all those dinner plans and those pool parties, I wasn't living in Chicago, so I didn't have the beach days, but the fellowship opportunities, all those things that I'd kind of filled my life up with, dried up really fast. And I get that in the pandemic, not everyone went into overdrive, and maybe I'm rare on this front. There was a lot of pain and a lot of spiraling that happened in the pandemic, but I chose it as a time to kind of reconnect to God. Not because I was some spiritual giant, just because I had some time on my hands and it was something I found to do. Maybe spirituality was my equivalent to banana bread baking. But during the pandemic, I started a morning routine, and I started to build out time each day to reconnect to God and to myself. And I added these small daily readings into the mix that I later built on. But I didn't do much for setting aside a day quite yet. At about 5 years sober, when I started seminary, a spiritual advisor of mine, a friend of mine who was a pastor, told me that I wouldn't make it very long with a good headspace if I worked full-time and was in grad school full-time, right? And so he advised that I set aside one day each week that I did not do work and I didn't do grad school. Tyler said they were applying for grad schools. If you do both of those things at the same time, you will burn out, right? And so he told me this advice. And it was something that helped me a lot at the time, but truth be told, during that period of my life, I just kind of saved all my other to-do list items for that day. But even saving that to Saturdays, doing all of the grocery shopping, I kind of changed gears at least. And when I moved to Chicago, a lot of that practice kind of went away. I would do some form of school or work task every single day. And I just moved, so building a community and starting a new job and eventually a new relationship took up most of my time. And as my life got fuller, my time set aside got fuller too, but with stuff to do. And so when I wasn't in a time dedicated to work or activities, I was still always on my phone, checking emails, taking calls, playing the most ridiculous games. Justin calls it the Grinder game. You know, that game that Grinder advertises? You know, it's called like King's Escape or something like that. I should know the name of it. I probably spend 5 hours a day on it. But eventually I damn near broke, right? At that just pedal to the metal lifestyle. So over the past 6 months, I've worked to build something that looks a little bit more sacred and a little bit more true. Not only my time to connect with God in the morning, but a day a week to connect with myself, to connect with community, and to connect with nature. Last week, we named a lie, and it's that you are what you produce, that society loves telling us. Ever met someone, what's the first question someone asks you after they ask you your name? What do you do for work, right? And I feel like that's some way subconsciously that society ranks us on our worthiness. We've been so attached to this, your output is your worth. So we talked about that last week, that our culture often tells us that we're a product and not a person, and we're usable, therefore worth something, and if we're unusable, then we're therefore worth nothing. We talked about how when we go through seasons where maybe we can't work or maybe that promotion didn't pan out, that can really affect the way we feel about ourselves. But setting aside, this week I want to talk a little bit more about something in life that really isn't very new. It's not a self-care hack or a productivity hack where we can recharge so that we can be more productive on the next day. We're going to talk about something ancient, something that's older than the pyramids or older than Rome or older than every single hustle culture that's tried to bury what we're doing. God built a day into the architecture of the week before there was a week that needed the day built in. And today isn't just about believing that, it's about practicing that, practicing something that we're going to call the Sabbath, but it's honestly quite bigger than that. It's quite bigger than just one faith tradition or one spiritual understanding. And today we're going to talk about how believing that rest is legitimate and it doesn't change anything about who we are if we don't produce. But we actually have to build the muscle of rest or Sabbath or whatever we choose to cause it. So by the time that we get next week and we talk about the specific weight that some of us are carrying, we'll already have a rhythm in line that's underneath everything that we need to set down. But here's the thing about this idea. Just like my own journey, it has been one that's gone too strict or none at all. And over 3,000 years, we've managed to do all kinds of things with our rest or our recharging time. We've done things since as legislate it or lose it and show up again. And it's come back and forth, and it's one of those things. Native culture says progress is like a wheel. We like to think of progress like a line, but progress is like a wheel. And I think we're at a stage in our culture, in our society, where returning to rest and being human instead of just little production machines is pretty important. So this is bigger, as I mentioned earlier, than any specific spiritual practice or timeline. And for most of the time tonight, we're going to talk about it through a Judeo-Christian lens. But every religious tradition has built in some version of sacred space. It isn't just like a Christian quirk or a Jewish practice that we can use. It's almost close to a universal human instinct. And I'm about to say a lot of things from a lot of cultures, and if I mispronounce them, I apologize in advance. But almost every culture has something like this. In Islam, they have Jumu'ah. It's Friday prayer, where business pauses for the gathering. It's actually even in the Quran, in book 62, verses 9 to 10. And then it picks back up. And Buddhism, I know we have people who practice Buddhism in the room, has something, I'm going to butcher this one, huh? Has Upsatha, which is observance days in the lunar calendar. Did I do it good? I listened to them all on YouTube earlier today. But it has Upsatha, which is observant days that are actually built into the lunar calendar. And it's been kept since the time of the Buddha himself. And it's rest that occurs roughly every week. The Baha'i faith has a Friday as a day of rest, and the Balinese Hindu has Napai, which is a full day of silence once a year where they don't travel, they don't work, there's no fancy lights. Even ancient Babylon may have had a version of this, and some scholars think that a lunar rest day called Shabbatu is where we get the word Sabbath that we use today. Now, most people kind of think that Israel developed it on our own. I went into a deep dive that really led me nowhere. But they all have different names. They might have different shapes. They might have different rhythms. They might have different practices or rituals attached to them. But they all kind of carry the same instinct. It's that something in us has always known we weren't built to run without a full stop built in. The Judeo-Christian journey towards sacred rest has been anything but linear. The Judeo-Christian understanding says Sabbath was something that was actually built into creation. Genesis 2, which we talked about last week, says God rests on the seventh day, not because work wasn't done, but because the rest, or the menuha that we talked about, actually completes everything that creation needs. Exodus 20 grounds the command in the same story, and it says, "For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth and rested on the seventh day." The reason that was given was because I did it. Rest is imitating God. Rest is us being connected to the rhythms of the universe. And Sabbath actually, in the Judeo-Christian understanding, is actually even connected to liberation. We see it a second time in sacred texts, where in Deuteronomy chapter 5, verses 12 to 15, the second time Scripture gives the command for Sabbath, it gives a different reason. And it has nothing to do with creation, but it actually has some stuff to do with bondage. It says, "Remember that you were a slave in Egypt, therefore keep the Sabbath day." Because in Egypt, there was no day off. Sabbath became a weekly act of defiance for their new culture. It said, we don't work for Pharaoh anymore. So for those of us that are in recovery, addiction was our Pharaoh, controlling every hour of every day. When we weren't drinking or using, we were often thinking about it. The big book says almost the same thing whenever we look at the Alcoholics Anonymous big book and A Vision for You, which is chapter 12. And if you're checking my sources, it's on page 151. It says, we became subjects of King Alcohol, shriveling denizens of his mad realm. That's a little dramatic, right? Shivering denizens. Alea, can you give us a shivering denizen? Just kidding. That shoulder shimmy was on point. But it says that we're subjects, not customers, right? We weren't just buying alcohol or participating in alcohol. We're dominated by it. The hustle culture around an addict, I've said it before and I'll say it again, I've never had a harder job than being a homeless junkie, right? Working all the time, never slowing down. And whatever it was that had you, whether it was the bottle or the needle, maybe it was a screen time or maybe it was a to-do list, was never meant to grant you rest on your own. Most of us come into recovery not knowing how to rest at all. We take the pedal to the metal that we had an addiction and translate it over to the sober life. We go full steam, and I know I did. Between working full-time and treating recovery like a full-time job, I never stopped. Add school to the mix because most of us realize that our life is opening up and want to make the most of it. We have opportunity for the first time in a while and we want to take full advantage. And in no time, whenever I was working full time and going to school and attending too many meetings, I never learned to rest. I traded one crazy life for another one altogether. But once I realized the need to rest, then I got militant about that too. We can be pretty extreme people, right? So much that my therapist actually had to tell me to stop being so rigid about my spiritual routine. That's bad, right? When your spiritual routine is so rigid, your therapist is like, maybe you need to give yourself a break. So Sabbath or spiritual time, it should never become a task that we need to conquer. It should be more of a space in which we enter. And the history of the Sabbath has kind of done the same thing, going back and forth from rigid to lax to nothing. Even if the Sabbath started as a gift from God and freedom from Pharaoh, over time it changed. By Jesus' time, the gift had been codified into 39 categories of forbidden work. It was called the Mishnah. People weren't resting, they were performing rest correctly. And so Jesus' answer from last week was Sabbath was made for humankind, not humankind for the Sabbath. So Jesus never wanted us to discard the Sabbath. He wanted it to go back to its original meaning. And as time went on, another evolution began. The church later moved to worship on Sunday to mark the resurrection, and the Emperor Constantine, which is arguably the beginning of the decline of the Christian faith in the year 335-ish, actually made it Roman civil law in 321 AD, and it was the first empire-wide pause on the calendar. And that's almost, 1,500 years before the labor unions. But centuries after that, the Puritans overcorrected in the other way, and Sunday rest became a matter of civil punishment again. It wasn't a gift. You could actually get whipped for not doing it. Sounds like a really restful day, right? If I don't do it, I'll get whipped in Puritan culture. The joke I thought in my head, I'm not going to say it. But there were actually people getting arrested for Sunday recreation. If you attached your mule to a cart to take it even to church, you could get arrested. I know Little House on the Prairie is big on Netflix right now. I haven't watched it. Growing up in Missouri, we had to read a lot of Laura Ingalls Wilder, and I'm not ready to go back there. But these laws lasted well into the 1800s. Then, though, in the 21st century, instead of fixing the legalization, we abandoned the whole project. These things were called blue laws, and they got abandoned one by one, and Sundays filled back up with errands and kids' sports leagues, and nothing in modern life seems to produce rest anymore. If it happens, you kind of have to fight for it yourself, right? And it's something that's often reserved for the privileged on vacation, but even there, we fill our days with itineraries and to-do lists. Anyone had a restful vacation lately? Probably not. No. You just went on vacation, Bob, and had a wedding with the party staying at your house, right? 15 people. 15 house guests. I don't want a house guest for 15 minutes anymore. because we just want to squeeze every ounce of our trip out as possible, right? Ever been on vacation with an itinerary person? Oh. So the history of the Sabbath follows an interesting arc, right? It starts off as gift and moves to liberation, which are both pretty good things, right? We can all fight for some liberation. We probably need to. And then it moved into legalism, and then it briefly got resurrected, and then legalism again, and then collapsed. It seems like throughout the time of history, human beings don't know how to do this thing. 3,000 years of swinging from one ditch to the other and never staying on the road. But we've landed exactly where we started last week. No rhythm, just hustle, no edges. So what does receiving it, not performing it or abandoning it, what does receiving a Sabbath actually look like? Scripture actually shows this whenever it travels us to someone's living room. Anyone know Mary and Martha? And I'm not talking about this Martha. So there's this story in Scripture where Jesus comes to the house of these two sisters. Their names are Mary and Martha. Martha opens her home to him, probably much like our Martha would do, right? If someone needed dinner. And so that's not nothing. That's hospitality. Martha's starting off on a good place. That's real service. It's a lovely, delightful thing to do. But then the book of Luke tells us that Martha is distracted by her many tasks. Her sister Mary, on the other hand, is enjoying the company of their guests, which doesn't go unnoticed to Martha. You ever been in that situation? I imagine that's how Justin feels every time we have people over. He's in there like putting together snacks and I'm hanging out on the couch, or maybe that's how a lot of our volunteers feel whenever I'm chatting with people after the gathering. But it doesn't go unnoticed. So Martha comes to Jesus, she's frustrated, and says, essentially, tell my sister to help me. That's an emotion we can all relate to. And Jesus' answer isn't what we'd expect. He doesn't say, Martha's right, Mary should help. He says, Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. There is need of only one thing. Mary has chosen the better part, which will not be taken away from her. He says, let Mary have some fun. Let Mary just hang out. Martha, why are you so stressed? Your energy's killing the vibe. I like to think of Jesus as a stoner from the 70s, right? Like you're what is it called? Harshen my mellow. Come on, Martha. But notice what Jesus doesn't say. He doesn't say Martha's work is bad or it's wrong. He says her state of mind, being all worried and distracted, not her task that was the problem. And that's the same restlessness that we named last week. That the woman filming herself at the beach instead of enjoying the beach, working to get some Instagram followers. I saw the woman. I don't know how many followers she had, but she was trying her best. We see it all the time when we call our sponsor because we're bored, because we don't even know how to just exist. We always feel like we need to be doing. In this story, Martha isn't a villain. Martha is every single one of us on a normal Tuesday. Stressed, running around about the tasks we need to do. Meanwhile, her sister Mary is just sitting at the feet of her guest, not serving anything up, not producing a single thing, just present. A state without that anxiety and that distraction. And the phrase that stands out to me is, which will not be taken away from her, serves some breaking down, right? Let's not steal Mary's peace. Let's not, what is it? Is it anyone from the 70s here? Was it Harsh the Mellow or something? Something. And everything we talked about last week that can be taken, we can lose the job, we can lose the clean time, we can lose the version of ourselves altogether. Jesus draws a line right next to that and says, what Mary has doesn't work that way. That peace, that simply enjoying being with other people. You can't lose presence the way that you can lose achievement. It's not a possession you're managing, it's a room you've entered, the room of rest. So this week isn't asking you to quit your job like Martha or never cook a meal for anyone. It's actually asking something like most things in recovery that are both much simpler and much harder at the exact same time. So what is a Sabbath and how do we even do this thing? Rest stayed as a real structural thing for Jewish people because it wasn't just an idea. It was a practice with an actual shape. It was a day that was named in advance, it was protected on the calendar, and it was intentionally made sacred. We don't need 40 pages of rules like the rabbis eventually built, We just need something small enough to actually do it. Maybe we just need some basic guiding principles to protect our sacred rest, our Sabbath. So here are 4 things that we can do to try to build time just to be in our lives. The first one is just simply naming a window. Not someday when things slow down or whenever I get everything done, I'll watch some Netflix. Maybe an actual hour or an actual morning or an actual day picked in advance and set aside, making it a priority. The way that Israel didn't leave the Sabbath to whenever time was left over, they made Sabbath a priority. And I'm not talking about the Israeli state. We will probably not celebrate them in here. I'm talking about the people of Israel, the Jewish people. For me, I've kind of had to hold this a little loosely, figure out what it was, change it if it needed. In seminaries, it was the Saturdays, but eventually Saturdays filled up with personal to-dos, so I had to reevaluate. Before I started free, whenever I was just a run-of-the-mill pastor, I would meet on Fridays. I would set aside Fridays. Makes sense, right? Work Sundays, so I'd take Friday off, just kind of move around my weekend. But with free being on Saturday nights, I found out my Fridays kept filling up with things to do, getting ready for Saturday night. So I spent the whole day thinking about the stuff I needed done. That wasn't very much rest. Now I do Mondays. It's after the culmination of 1 week of rhythms and before the start of the next. It's almost like a palate cleanser of my tasks. I wrap up, and before I get going again, I set aside to just be a human being, which I don't think culture gives us much space to do. The second thing that I think is really important when we're setting aside time for rest is to name what we're stopping. What is it that we're going to hold off on? Not just work, but maybe producing or managing. Maybe it's consuming or scrolling, the things that we quietly turn off time back into another kind of labor. For most of us, it's the phone, right? The average American now checks their phone around 96 times a day and racks up roughly 7 hours of screen time. That's not a fun activity, that's a second job. This is something that I'm actually pretty guilty of. I spend so much of my time on my phone that I'm just leaving one world and entering another. It cuts me off from connection and it numbs the world around me. If we stay on our phones, we're just zombies. We're just zombies. We turn into zombies when we spend too much time on our phones. Last night I was actually at fellowship. It was after the Friday night CMA meeting. I caught myself playing that stupid grinder game sitting across from Mesh over here. Not being present, not listening to the stories, not enjoying the people that I was with. The phone transported me from a place of rest to a place of work. Every time I say grinder game, Lennox cracks up. Justin called it that. Sometimes we need to pull back on our screen time so we can be present for the people that are around us. This series isn't called Unplugged by accident. So much of what keeps us from being fully present is actually the digital world, and I feel like that might be by design. Keeps us dumb and checked out, not connected and enjoying each other. Remember last week, or what I mentioned earlier, the women filming at the beach all day? Or the crowd on Halstead making a TikTok video, twerking outside of Sidetrack? Lennox. Just kidding. The phone doesn't just interrupt rest anymore. It's gotten good enough at mimicking rest that we don't even notice the difference. So this week, stopping gets specific. If it gets a concrete shape, if it gets those things that are pulling us away from having good connection and peace. And it might be simple. What if you just put your phone somewhere else, maybe in another room or a drawer, or maybe the glove box while you're driving, which is what I need to do, because if anyone's riding the car with me, you're probably going to get in a wreck. So for whatever window you named in step 1, what if you put your phone out of reach as part of step 2 for that window of time? And then if we name what we're leaving behind, we also need to name what we're entering. And that's why I like to use the word Sabbath, right? Because it names it. It gives a concrete example of what we're doing. It's not a task to do, but instead it is a posture. It's that seat that Mary had when her sister was all stressed out. It's presence. It's something with no output attached to it. Jewish culture does this pretty well. They begin each Sabbath with prayers, followed by a meal, and then community connection. And we don't have to call it Sabbath or culturally shoplift from another faith group to do this. We just need to name it and protect it. Come up with whatever name you want. I don't think the spirit that unifies the universe is going to get offended, just like if you call God whatever you call God. If the spirit's that powerful, its ego's not that weak. And then do what you can do to make it sacred. And lastly, do it again next week. A practice isn't a practice until it repeats. One good Sabbath moment might be a nice afternoon, but a rhythm is what actually recharges you. Just like any practice, we have to start slow and then build up. Pick one area that you need to work on and try to start slow and build that up until you can work into the rest. Sometimes being all in too soon can lead to a burnout. So somewhere this week, you're going to have a Martha moment, right? You're going to be busy with something good, maybe even something for your higher power, and there's going to be distraction underneath. When that happens, I want you to remember that you have another option on the table. Not instead of the work, just before it, in the middle of it, after it, choose Mary's seat. Sit and receive. Don't produce anything, and don't worry about the fact that you're not. Now, I'm not expecting everyone in this room to all of a sudden take a whole day aside and do nothing, right? That's probably an unrealistic expectation. And we're all in different stages of life spiritually. Some might be ready to try it out. Ryan, you know Ryan, he actually texted me last Sunday and told me how hard it was. Ready to test it out. Some of you just may need a night off. But I do want to challenge everyone in this room to try something. And maybe it's just reading something spiritual in the morning. Not as a to-do list item to get done, but as an opportunity to create some space for rest. Maybe it's doing a no phones in bed rule. Has anyone ever tried it? I've talked about it a lot, but I haven't done it yet. Where you plug your phone in to charge for the night away from your bedside table. It's actually really good for your sleep not to have that stimulation right before you go to bed. But so many of us go to bed looking at our phones and wake up looking at our phones. And those 20 minutes before we fall asleep and after we wake up can be some of the most valuable recharging time of your day. Maybe it's going to dinner with friends that's technology free. When was the last time anyone did that? Maybe it's a trip to the beach where you just enjoy being at the beach. I had a joke about the bushes I'm not going to use. So in closing, I don't think taking time for sacred rest, regardless of your faith practice, is anything new to us. If you don't know about it in your faith practice, study a little harder, you'll find it. Not only have most of us struggled with it for most of our lives, humans have actually struggled with this for most of history. So if you're struggling with taking time to just exist, you're in good company. Every tradition we named earlier, Judaism, Islam, Baha'i, Buddhism, Hinduism, is really the same instinct surfacing in totally different corners of the world across thousands of years. It's just a practice that's giving us permission to stop on purpose without waiting for the world to hand it to us. We've built laws around it. We've broken our own laws about it. We've lost it completely and gone looking for it again. Fun fact, Charlie Kirk's last book was actually on the Sabbath. So even people that see things very different than us can know that it's important. You don't have to earn the seat of Mary. You don't have to do good work in order to sit and rest and be. You don't have to perform your way into it, and you can't create laws about it either. All you have to do is be open and slow down. And for the next few minutes, we're going to do just that. We're going to sit. And when you get an urge, like I do every single week, to pull out your phone and check it, when that comes, like I know it will for me, I'm challenging everyone to just try and resist it and just breathe and just be for the next 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Can we do that? I know someone's holding Linux accountable. Let's try it out and see. by playing the guitar, but it was kind of the perfect words, right? So now, as I mentioned earlier, we have our guest storyteller tonight, celebrating 6 months of sobriety this week. So let's hear it for Raya and welcome him up.
But you just look at it.
Where were you when you first had a bro in high school whip out a guitar and play that song at a house party?
Oh man, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
I think I was a freshman in high school when I met my buddy, and he showed me some guitar stuff, acoustic, and he introduced me to One Metallica. Right?
Yeah. Well, that song's very John Mayer. But anyways, Raya, glad to have you up here tonight. If you just want to start by telling us a little bit about your recovery story.
Okay, so I grew up in foster care, child services, bouncing around from home to home. By the time I was 8 years old, was adopted. Ended up being abandoned by my adopted family who didn't really want me from the start of it. So at 16 years old, I started out on my own. The person who took over from there has been a big role in my life. But it's always been trying to teach me to get right and showing me how to do things independently. When at 16, the first people that ever welcomed me in was a bunch of hippies who started me on some like psychedelics, weed, shrooms, and some alcohol. And that's where it began. Every time I would try to get my life together, because my dad now had been trying to get me to, get to school and get to job. So I would do that and I'd get on my feet real quick. And then I would crash and burn like 3 months later and then get back to using, because whatever I felt empty inside, alone all the time, I never really had a good solid foundation of where like I had a good gratitude of people and solid, support. It was just always those welcoming of drugs. And then it turned off like when I moved, just bouncing around from the street life, I would just find the next person that could like literally try to take me in. And it was just more drugs. And then gangs took, said, well, don't join the gang, but, we got you, So it was like, great. So, that's how I spent most of my life, just trying to battle between good and bad, and then I'd go to jail, then I'd get out, try to get on my feet again. I'd get back into school and then get back into work. And then like 3 months later, I'd crash and burn again. I did that multiple of 10 times through 18 years, 10 times. And it's been a battle just through this whole time, and only having one person in my life at the time, far distance from Florida, bailing me out all the time, not being able to do it for myself because I had nothing. So how do you get up with nothing? And every time you got something, you didn't really feel, it was just lonely and it was just empty. So it didn't really please me. So I crashed and burned. But that's mostly how my whole story went.
Yeah. And so what was different this time?
What happened the last 6 months was the greatest decision I ever made. I decided to just work it and actually just do it. And just like get over my fears, get over my trust issues, get over everything that bothered me, and just start putting things in my life. And just getting rid of my past and the people that were detrimental in my life, and just starting a whole new direction and being okay with that. It was hard. I'm not gonna sit here and say just being able to accept being alone, and then it didn't turn out that way. I was.
It's funny how that works, right?
Yeah.
It's like my mother, all 65 years of her age, has a ladybug tattoo from the movie Under the Tuscan Sun. Have you seen that movie? Where she's like, you can spend all day looking for a ladybug and then you fall asleep in a field and ladybugs are crawling all over you, right? Like, it's funny how when you stop looking for something is when it plops into your lap, right?
And that is so true, because I've always been looking, and that's funny you say that, because I've always been looking. I was like, well, I'm in school, I'm around all these people, but like people keep saying, oh, let's go hang out, and never hear from them again. It's like I never hang out with them, and I'm like, oh, okay, and I just throw it off my shoulder. Faking happiness, like people could see that I wasn't happy, so maybe that was like, I could sit there and smile and they would just know like the outback, and I don't know, I guess I gave it away, and it's just like, maybe I didn't give a good energy.
And so we were talking about rest tonight, right? Like building in time to set aside, and you're one of those people that's pedal to the metal, wouldn't you say?
The sprinter, pedal
Yeah.
to the metal, always on go, 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 go. Wake up on go. Like it seems like my whole full of tank. As soon as I wake up, I can just jump out of bed and just like blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And get my
I
day
mean-
going.
I'm obviously not telling people not to be intense people. I try my hardest not to be a hypocrite. I've been known to be intense, right?
Right.
And so, like in your past, whenever like recovery wasn't clicking, do you think that had anything to do with it? Just that pedal to the metal, go hard, go, yeah.
Yeah, but there's also my dad in my ear.
Uh-huh.
He said, do you really think this recovery thing's working for you? Do you think you, because I didn't believe in it. I didn't believe in the 12 steps. I didn't believe the sponsorship. I just thought, oh, you know, it's just a place to live to get me back on my running sprint
Yep.
again. And it's just a stable foundation.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, I always did that, but I never did the opposite like I did this last 6 months where, you know what, let me do it without recovery. Let me do it, you know, differently and then put recovery in it to hold it together. And I did it all at the same time, which never done that before, and it worked out because it's gotten me this far sober my whole life.
Yeah.
This
'Cause this is the
far.
longest time you've had
This
so far,
is
right?
the longest. I've never made it past 3 months.
There used to be this guy in the town I got sober in, and he would, every time you had a sobriety day, he'd go, "That's a good thing you did there. Now never do it again." Like never get 6 months again, right? Like, you know, like never go back and start over, which we can always do that if we have to. But, and so how do you keep your mental and emotional stability working full time, school, like all that? Like what do you build into your life that reminds you that you're a human, that keeps you sane?
You know, the luck of this, and I feel like it's a great blessing. Coming here, meeting Aaliyah, Lennox, Don, you guys, my job, my boss, big time my bosses, you know, always supporting me with affirmations every day. And then my sponsor, Don, who tell me to, you know, go in the mirror and just keep saying, I trust you, I love you, you know, always talking that energy into me. And I have to really believe it. And then my dad is the one big supporter. And then all of a sudden, all of the changes that I made, when I decided to flip that script and do what I've been doing the 6 months, this is the best feeling. And I'm actually truly happy for once. And, you know, where I don't have to fake it. You know, and that's the biggest part for me. Faking happiness, I don't have to do that ever again.
I mean, that's a good point. Like if we're talking about time where we don't produce, right? What if we spent time where we were around people where we didn't have to produce the version of ourselves that we thought they wanted to see, right? That's authenticity. We have it on the wall for a reason, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
having to fabricate or pretend like we're a version of ourselves is fucking exhausting, right? And so, I mean, I think there's certain rest and Sabbath and authenticity, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And so one final question for any of the people that are maybe in the room, or especially those that are joining us online. I know there's a lot of people that have your story before this 6 months, right?
Oh, I'm sure
there's
is.
There's a lot of people that try and crash and burn, and they want it so bad, and then it just keeps on, you know, slipping through their fingers. And you have that lived experience, right?
Absolutely.
So what would you tell them about recovery or authenticity or like finding your people, which were the big three themes I heard in what you were just saying, right? What would you tell them to help them kind of see that there's a way forward, even if it feels like the evidence doesn't add up to that, right?
You have to be okay with yourself and the foundations that you're going for. And I would tell them that, you know, first focus on you and focus on what you really want and desire, and really put your mindset to focus on you, and don't worry about what's around you or who else, because that, for me, when I did that, this all just fell into place. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't expect, I had nothing. 6 months ago, I had nothing. I was at the bottom of the pit, and I came out of it just by blessings, you know, the job, then school, and then, you know, but I was also working recovery at the same time. I just jumped into all of it at the same time, and then everybody just fell into place. The past went out, and the new came in, and like, just be patient with it, and, you know, just keep trying and don't ever give up. You know, it's challenging. It's the most challenging. If you have nothing and you came from nothing and you're back out there with nothing, there's always something, because you just gotta know what you want and just gotta strive for that, and then you'll be thriving right after that.
Absolutely. Be patient with it. I think sometimes we don't say that enough, right? Like, just be patient with it, because there are times when all the pieces click, and there's times when sometimes they just don't, right? And like if we like don't stop before the miracle happens, right? Like those times where things just like aren't clicking doesn't mean the next time things aren't going to click.
Absolutely.
Right? And like I'm sure anyone in this room could say like, aren't we glad that we didn't give up before this time? Right? Aren't I glad I didn't give up? Well, before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like people to know? Is there anything that we didn't cover or didn't hit on?
No, I think that's
Okay, sweet.
I
You
can't
said some
think of
good
it.
shit. So thank you,
hope so.
Ryan. Thank you very much. You did really good. Look, doesn't he look so tough in that picture? He looks like I'm going to go beat up everyone in the mailroom. Awesome. And now we've come time for generosity. We hold this space aside every week, and it's generosity is a practice that helps us build to what we're building here together. So here at Free, we have two primary goals, right? The first primary goal is that people have meaningful experiences, and whatever that looks like. The meaning for Martha and the meaning for Joe and the meaning for Lennox might be three different things, but our goal is that people have meaningful experiences while they're here. And our second goal is a little more long-term. It is to build a recovery hub on the north side of Chicago for addicts in recovery, hopefully with some transitional housing, because we all know that ending your time at the sober house before you're kind of ready on your own is a big deal. So those are the things we're working towards, and your giving and giving of people online and throughout the week help us build towards that. So we are very grateful. And now it comes to time for celebrations, or it's heartaches. Heartaches, so don't clap at a heartache. So heartaches, these are those things that might just be a little too heavy to carry from the room alone. We like to say celebration or a heartache. If your 12-step share is the email, the heartache or celebration is the subject line. So just a few words so everyone knows that they can be praying for you. There's usually a pause between heartaches. So just take that time to send up some prayers or good vibes or whatever your spiritual practice implies in support of that person. So let's put some time on the clock, and we'll pass around the microphone.
Hi, I'm Bob. I'm an addict and alcoholic.
Hey, Bob.
I've got a couple friends with prostate cancer. One is 12 years, very aggressive, and he wasn't supposed to be here now, but he still is. And it's been really tough for him. And then another friend just had his prostate removed the other day, and that's really, heartbreaking as well. And then the other thing is, I live in Florida part of the year. There's a lot of older people there in meetings. And what I've noticed is they're really lonely and they're stuck. And a lot of them will have many years of sobriety, but yet they just don't have that energy that we have here, with a younger group. So anyway, shout out to them.
Absolutely. Prayers for those people and their medical stuff and the connection that I think we all crave in our whole soul.
Hi, I'm Tyler. Grateful to be here.
Tyler.
My mother and I have not been on great terms for the last 6 months. My stepfather either. She's been in active addiction for a couple of years now, and I guess my stepdad, who was not using drugs before, decided to join her. Today is her birthday, and it's just weighing heavily on me, because I wish I could say happy birthday, but I made the decision to distance myself from them because of the way that they were treating me, and I found it unacceptable. So
Yeah. Prayers for your parents and prayers for you as you go through that.
Hi, my name's Ed. I'm an addict. Been suffering a lot of setbacks lately, and at least, some that are very real, some that are possibly in my mind, but it's really been draining on me, and just not been in a really good mood. It's been a rough week for me. So just please think of me in your prayers, that I get some blessings instead of setbacks. Would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Prayers for you, Ed, as you navigate those setbacks.
Well, and I say it every week, and I'm probably going to say it every week. So if you're carrying anything maybe that you didn't want to share with the whole group, there are several people that you can still share that with throughout the room. So definitely Martha or Joe or anyone. Honestly, half the room would probably be happy to sit and talk to you. So before you leave the room, if you're carrying something too heavy, you don't got to walk through the doors carrying that alone. Reach out to someone in the room and they'd be happy to support you. So thank you for everyone who trusted us in this space. We'll also send out prayers. I feel like there's been a lot of relapses in the past 2 weeks. Has anyone felt that? So we'll pray not only for the people who have gone through it, but the people who are going through it to a point where they feel like that is the solution. So we talk about addicts and alcoholics suffering in and out of the room. We never know who's sitting next to us that's going through that. So before we close out for the night, I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. Had a good night connecting with y'all. We'll start packing up at like 7:15. So hang out for a minute, talk to each other, get to know someone you don't know. Until we get to that point where we have the recovery hub, we have to carve out community while we're here, and then about 7:15 we'll start setting up. So if you want to hang out and help out with that, we'd most certainly be grateful. And after writing a prayer last week that felt confusing and unhinged, I've gone with an old classic. So if you will, just join me in this serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom